Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Thomas Spark. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about why I fundamentally believe the perfect VPN does not exist and might not ever. Now guys, if you're not aware, I have the one and only VPN tier list out there. I've rated almost every single VPN, and in past years the VPN tier list was even longer. Since then, a couple of VPNs have become inactive, so the list is kind of shrinking down a bit. However, I do have up-to-date patch notes and things like that. Go ahead and check out vpntierlist.com if you want to know my rankings of every VPN. But today we're going to be talking about why the perfect VPN doesn't exist. Now, if you're one of my haters, this might surprise you, because you might automatically say, well, Tom Spark, aren't you going to say TorGuard is the perfect VPN? And in fact, I actually had one of the largest kind of privacy communities out there. One of the people who runs it, I'm not going to say which one, but they came to me and said, hey, why do you shield TorGuard so much? Why do you even like it so much? And I asked this person, have you watched my TorGuard review? And then they said no. So, this is one of the things that people don't really understand about the channel, is that we do things here in terms of objective, data-driven reviews, and that is one reason why the perfect VPN doesn't exist. And if people are calling me a shill, it's because they don't really watch my content or learn and educate themselves about the system we've created here to help people find VPNs. And I think that's very important. But today we're talking about that core concept why the perfect VPN doesn't exist. Well, my theory about that is because there's kind of like a limited budget for every VPN. They can only focus on so many certain things. That's definitely one good reason. We have some VPNs like Molvad. They specifically kind of go hard on doing one thing really, really well, which is having the most public-facing, transparent company in terms of privacy. They're willing to kind of take the cost of losing money in order to gain that trust of people. For example, they don't even have subscriptions on their website. You don't really need to provide them with an email. They don't use any trackers for their marketing or analytic information. They don't really do that many advertisements. All these things could actually probably benefit their business and make them have a bigger business, but they're willing to sacrifice those things in order to seem more trustworthy and transparent with its user base. And it can work. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have something like NordVPN. It's willing to sacrifice some of those transparent and trust kind of relationships with potential customers out there in order to reach more customers that might want to use it. So while Molvad might not spend any money on marketing, NordVPN is like sending nuclear missiles of marketing everywhere. But this also means they have more trackers on their website. They have more analytic tracking. Their company business model is more reliant on subscriptions and keeping people subscribed and keeping the money that people give them. That's why sometimes there's a little bit of annoyances with auto renewal charges and things like that, where Molvad doesn't have that. So both of these VPNs have their own way of doing it. Which is more successful? Well, that kind of depends on your metric, right? And that kind of depends. And that's kind of the core message of this video and why there isn't a perfect VPN, is that every VPN just does it differently. And there's a lot of things that VPNs do that they're really good at. And if you can't fundamentally understand that, then I don't think you actually understand VPNs, and you really don't understand VPN reviews. So while something like NordVPN might be less promoted on Reddit, or people might not like it more on Reddit, it certainly has a higher valuation as a company. I think it's like almost a $2 billion company. Whereas I don't think Molvad is anywhere close to that, but it's way, way more shilled on Reddit. So there's a good difference there between success of companies. And what we're talking about in other ways is kind of the core product of every VPN. A lot of people say, hey, TorGuard isn't a good VPN. You shouldn't talk about it at all. But good for who? What is your metric for defining that value of the product? That's why here in the tier list, there's so many different metrics. So when I'm saying I don't know if the perfect VPN exists, well, technically it doesn't. If you look at this chart, every VPN has red areas. Even TorGuard, which comes closest to the perfect metric, it still has core areas where it could improve. The 30-day refund, for example. I've talked to TorGuard's team, and sometimes if someone really needs a refund after 7 days, they will give it to them. But in other areas like the open source application, one reason the application is not open source, according to the team, is they want to focus more on stealth VPN technologies and those kind of technologies which can be easier to block if it's open source, especially for spy agencies. So they're willing to sacrifice that open source transparency of their application to have better anti-blocking technology, and they certainly do have that. They're the only VPN that supports V2Ray, which means they're one of the best VPNs to unblock things like the Chinese firewall, Iranian firewalls, and all these other firewalls around the world that prevent people from using internet. So if some Molvet or iVPN shill out there says, hey, you shouldn't use TorGuard, it's not trustworthy, it's not transparent, it's not open source, well, you could say, well, that might not actually be the reason why they're not having open source. They're not just doing it because they're lazy, or they don't have it because they're lazy. They're focusing on something else. And I think that's one thing that is very important. Some VPNs are smaller. They need to be more expensive. Some VPNs are able to be less expensive and gain more customers. So at the end of the day, every VPN has its own special spot for some customer out there. But what the tier list does is it tries to distill what products are going to be the best for most customers. And I think that is what gets us closest to the most perfect VPN. So if there's any goal here on the channel, if there's anything you take away from this video, it's that the tier list tries to get you to the closest possible VPN perfect for the most people, but no VPN really is perfect for everybody. It really depends on what you need and what's perfect for you. So if someone is telling you on Reddit, someone's telling you on Discord, that VPN sucks, Tom Sparks is shill, well, it just goes to show you they don't really understand that important message of nuance, of VPNs being different for different use cases, being stronger in other areas where others are not. Take NordVPN, for example. Maybe it's had some blunders in the past with security. Maybe it has too many marketing trackers on its website, but it does have really, really fast speeds. It's able to afford those speeds. Not only that, but it has really cool kind of mesh networking technology built into the application, and one of the best applications in terms of its graphical user interface. We could talk all day about the individual differences between the VPNs and what VPN is good for which user, and that's pretty much what the channel is. So if this video kind of gave you any insight into that question, why doesn't the perfect VPN exist? Well, the reason is because the perfect use case doesn't exist. Everybody needs something different from a VPN. Thankfully, there's enough out there to provide different use cases. Maybe someday the perfect VPN will exist. Maybe TorGuard will open source its application while simultaneously being the best at blocking, unblocking firewalls. But at the same time, there are some other applications that have a little bit more focus on the pure aesthetic perspective of their application and might do better than TorGuard in the usability and appearance section. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see.